Today on the show, strategy and action equals the power of pain points. Great coaches and consultants like you have the ability to change people's lives and transform entire organizations. And your impact can often go far beyond the clients you work with. One of the reasons I love working with coaches and consultants is because of that ripple effect. This show is here to highlight your expertise and empower you with resources and new ideas to grow your business. Welcome to Strategy in Action. Robin Waite is on the show today, and we had an absolute blast talking through a couple of really key components to running a coaching and consulting practice, or heck, even if you're a freelancer offering services per hour. Really finding some solutions around that. And I say solutions because there's a problem if you're simply trading your time for money like that on a per hour basis. And we dig into a lot of what those problems are, but more importantly, solutions around them. And we start off here digging into the power of knowing your client's pain points. It's such an important aspect. We hear a lot about market research, and this is what falls into that, certainly. But it's also really digging into what are your clients struggling with? Also, certainly, what are they aspiring to? What are they trying to accomplish? But we can dig into what they're really struggling with and then line that up with how we can bring solutions to those problems. We're going to find that fit in the type of client we want to work with and the fit in the solution that we can provide. So again, that's where we start, is around these pain points, but then we quickly dig into so many different areas that Robin is helping coaches and consultants and even freelancers with his Fearless Business program. Just a phenomenal, fun interview. So let's jump in. Robin Waite, welcome to the show.
Glad to be here, Jason. I can't wait to dig into this. And I'm so pleased that you reach out to me. You obviously, for the reasons hopefully we're going to explore a little bit later on in the episode.
Yes, absolutely. So fun. I appreciate you jumping in from some random guy on LinkedIn going, hey, I read your post. You want to be on the show? To jumping in and agreeing to do so. To really set that up for the audience too. Honestly, it also speaks to the power of LinkedIn articles and their SEO power. I think that was from probably June, July, something you had written there, really around this idea of figuring out the pain points of your clients, right? Or of your ideal clients, and when to sort of figure this out, how to do it, and honestly, the importance of it, so that you're speaking to those pain points, you're solving them. And so when I, Googled that, this came up like, oh, this is a phenomenal list of 100 of your clients, pain points, and then a little bit around why you even wrote that article and what you encourage your clients to do. And that was the impetus for the reach out, and then started going down the rabbit hole there of like, wow, everything that you have going on and that you offer, just fantastic. So I want to dig in certainly on that idea, right, of figuring out those pain points, but just so the audience has a little bit of, geography around you a little bit. How long have you been coaching? Who are you helping right now to do all this? And how are you helping them with their pain points?
Yeah, so coaching wise, I would say I'm actually a relative spring chicken to the coaching world. So 6 years, just coming up for 7 years, actually, I've been coaching for. But prior to that, just so I have some deeper level of credibility with your audience, Jason, I ran a marketing agency for 12 years. So I've been in business for, the best part of 2 decades now. The transition occurred actually in 2016 because I was between daughters. So my second daughter was about to arrive, and in my agency days, it was a relatively successful but very small sort of local marketing agency. We had about a team of 4, and they were all slightly dysfunctional, and 120 odd clients, and they were also a bit dysfunctional. I just realized the pressures of running an agency. It just reached a point for me 12 years into that business where I was like, when my daughter's born, I'm just not going to get to spend any time with her. And that absolutely crushed me. So I made a decision. I was very fortunate. I was able to sell it for a modest fee and take some paternity leave. And during that time when I was not working, a mentor of mine, well, two mentors of mine actually said, "Oh, Robin, do you know what? You'd make a really good business coach because of your experience." So in 3 months, I managed to I designed what is now Fearless Business, the coaching practice we run. So we work with a similar audience to yourself, actually, coaches, consultants. We also do a lot of work with freelancers as well, obviously because of my background with marketing side of things. And my goal really is about helping or empowering those small business owners to essentially escape the time for money trap. So if they're selling hourly rates or day rates, how can we package things up better for them so that they're focused on, the results and outcomes which they produce for their clients, with the amazing work which they do. And as a result of that, then get known to be an expert in their field so that they can then, confidently charge a little bit more for it. So we take them through the whole sort of packaging process, pricing, bit of mindset and confidence work, which we do within that, a bit of sales work as well. And then, I have my thoughts on marketing, which has changed dramatically since 2004, but LinkedIn is still a thing, it appears, and it works, Jason. Would you believe it?
Exactly. We're living proof right here, right?
Yeah.
In some form or way, it's working, for sure. I'm curious, what was your first reaction when you had those mentors say, you should really coach? Was that crazy to you at the time? Was it natural?
A bit of both, actually, without getting splinters from sitting on the fence. So we'd actually kind of innovated our agency into doing a lot of workshops. So I kind of started doing a bit of the teaching and training anyway. So there was an element of coaching in what I was already doing. But I'm not going to lie, when the first mentor said, "Oh, have you thought about coaching?" I was a bit like, honestly, because I knew what industry we were stepping into. I hate to say it. There's something about the coaching space where you see a lot of charlatans and fake gurus and people promising the moon on a stick and then not being able to live up to that that promise. And I mean, the good news is that kind of I was never going to let that stop me. I was like, right, well, if I'm going to go into this business coaching thing, then I'm going to do it properly, the right way, focus on the results I'm delivering to clients, give money back guarantees if people aren't happy, and just do it properly, like be a do this with integrity. I was chatting with a coaching friend of mine who was actually involved with Action Coach, which is a pretty big franchise here in the UK, and they do have action coaches dotted around the world. And he was just saying that 70-80% of the coaches, even that they get in some of these big coaching franchises, are just do not deliver what they promise. It's all about that, feeding their ego. It's all about selling and making money. And for me, the one thing which is the most important thing to me is client results. It's the one thing which keeps me awake at night. Now my kids are sleeping through the night. It's client results, right? And if I'm not helping clients to get what they want or get closer to what they want, I'm not doing my job properly.
Oh yeah, I love that, and it is something that's certainly in the beginning. It can be an uphill battle to fight against that. Inherent, the negative side of things, of coaching, of the industry. The optimist in me, I guess, goes, well, at least I have something to point to go, I'm not that, and it's easier to differentiate yourself when you're not that. And
yeah, I mean, look, you get it with any industry, whether it's like, construction, or it doesn't matter what service you're buying these days. There's always going to be a good side and a dark side to that industry. And it's, it's just, you choose to go which way you choose to go. I think that comes down to it. But I'll caveat this with, I know a ton of like amazing coaches who do it all the right way as well, and let's focus on them, the good guys.
Oh, yeah, exactly. And that's why it's kind of, I don't have that hesitation in that world because I have more of those reference points for me personally in my life, and my circle of people and all of that are the good ones. Thank goodness, And so I love this. Man, there's so many topics to jump in with you that I would love. I'd love to first to start with this idea that really that kind of led me to you and finding this. It's kind of the journey I'm on, right? Is I guess market research somewhat, staying on top of what my ideal clients really are struggling with or want to accomplish. And that's what, led me to that list, right? And in the conversations I'm having right now and figuring out what are you struggling with? What are the pain points right now, and finding those common ones? Because for me, that's the fun stuff in terms of coming up with ideas, right? Like that's the blast. When I'm networking with somebody on LinkedIn or whatever it might be, and I've never met them, like that's the most fun thing in the world, to just jump into that with, oh, what do you have going on? What's this? Oh, have you tried to do this? And that reaction of, I've never thought about that before. Like, that is the greatest feeling for me. And I think just recently I've put the two together. The idea that I really need to be doing more market research before going full force with an offer, and realizing that this, because when I think market research, I think data and numbers and gotta go, and I run the other way, right? And so putting that together with the idea, like, no, it's just doing this, having conversations with people, brainstorming some cool stuff for them, and going about your day. Like, that's what you love doing anyway. Oh yeah, that's awesome. That's fun. And I know you've had this amazing, wonderful list. And I want to dig into some of those, like how you're helping them address some of these pain points. But let's talk about the importance of that identification a little bit, and figuring those out for your clients.
Well, the key word which you used there was identification. So identity, like at the end of the day, like understanding who your clients are, especially from a coaching perspective. Like for me, coaching is very much, without going too woo-woo, it's very intuitive. It's very feelings based. You follow your heart in terms of what questions you're going to raise with a client, how you're going to challenge them, and how you're going to start to, take them on whatever journey it is that they need to go on. And so you've got the emotional side of coaching, also any form of marketing. Like the one reason people buy, you can talk about whether they can afford to pay for it, or how much they covet it, or anything, things like that. But ultimately, what it comes down to is, like, marketing is very much about tapping into somebody's feelings, their emotions around, like, why they want to buy that thing, because there's a pain point, a challenge, or a problem right now that they're experiencing that they then want to overcome. And this dream result, which they want to, moving from, a good friend of mine calls it Hell Island to Heaven Island. What does that transformation look like? So that's why understanding those pain point problems and challenges is, like, the most fundamental part of being able to understand your clients where they're at right now. If you can't pinpoint where they're at right now, how can you sell them a solution to where they want to get to, right? So that's kind of where the whole philosophy of the pain points comes from. And it's remarkable how many people just completely overlook it.
Oh yeah. And it just, that sparked in me too, of that follow-up to it, that idea of marketing that you just described. Is that how it's changed for you? Because you talked about it evolving very much from 2004 to now. Is that part of what you've identified in that evolution?
Yeah, I mean, there's a practical, tactical side of, like, what's changed now, and you could look at software and technology and various things like that, media that the message is delivered through. But fundamentally, the problems and challenges, they won't have changed dramatically. Because, like I said, their feelings are emotion based. Human beings for millions of years have held the same feelings and emotions and attachments, to whatever the thing is. So, but what you've got to think about though is that the market niche and the product niche are, most people, when it comes down to, like, niching, for example, or trying to identify their ideal client in business, that's all they solidly focus on. And they look at things like psychographics and demographics, typical sort of middle-aged 40-year-old woman who hangs out down at the local supermarket buying Sensodyne toothpaste and all this sort of stuff. And most of that is actually arbitrary. It doesn't tell you about, like, the reason why human beings are, like, we build tribes. We glue together with people who are similar to ourselves. We have that identity of people that we feel safe around. So you can go that third layer deep. So you can do psychographics and demographics, but the identity level, the third level, is like massively important. And that's where you then get there was a marketeer who wrote a book, this guy called Eugene Schwartz. He wrote a book called Breakthrough Advertising, and he talked about when you can identify what that collective desire is in a tribe, a group of people, you own marketing, you own that space, right? Because there's a lot of energy behind it, and the energy is in the movement from A to B. Like, whereas a tribe, we're going to get together and we're going to do something. So we've got the market niche, but the thing is then most people then completely ignore this other niche that we need to be looking at, which is linked up to the solution. It's the products niche. And this is where you then, when you're clear on what your client's problems are, pain points, challenges, being able to clearly articulate what is the one thing that I do really well for that one specific audience. And straight away, it's like if you go to, so here in the UK, we've got things called GPs, general practitioners, right? It's your doctor. So you go down to your high street doctor. He's a general practitioner. He does all sorts of different things. And, you might go in there with a sore knee and he tries to sort of diagnose a problem. But unless you go to a knee specialist, an expert, you're not going to get to the nub of what's going wrong with your knee, right? And then there are knee experts who specialize in muscles, tendons, bones, and the different constituent parts of knees. So you go even deeper. So when you have that specialist who does one thing really well for one specific audience or one specific problem, you get known as being an expert in your field. And when you become an expert in your field, do people pay? Do you become cheap or expensive in the marketplace? And more often than not, you can charge more than your competitors.
Oh, big time. And that's so powerful. So let's dig into a little bit of the how and going about that. Certainly taking into account everybody's different. Everybody's got their different, experience and expertise and all of that. But both in the how on identifying those pain points and maybe even where to start. Some people may be in that boat of they don't even know who they're going to help, or they've got, I really like to focus on them or them. It'd be dumb to do both, kind of identifying that and then figuring out what those pain points are. Do you have kind of initial, here's step one to go and do that?
Yeah, absolutely. So simple exercises that we're going to, if you imagine you had 10 different audiences that you're thinking, oh, I'd love to work with these people. There's three basic criteria which we want to look at. So first of all is, do I love working with these people? And you can rate these three things on a scale of 1 to 10. Yeah. So how much do I love working with these people on a scale of 1 to 10? The second one is, can I get great results for them? Remember, product solution fit versus market fit. So can I get great results for them on a scale of 1 to 10? And then the final one, and this is where people feel a bit icky because then we have the money conversation, but can they afford to work with me at the rates which I'm selling at? So what we do is we then go through all, 10 or however many different types of audience you're thinking about marketing to and rate all of them. And it might be one gets a 6, a 3, and a 1, so they're a 10 out of 30. And then you get this audience that pops up that's like I love working with them, 10 out of 10. I get pretty decent results, 9 out of 10 on that. And actually they've got bucket loads of cash, which they'd love to spend with me. So that's a 10 out of 10. So we end up with 29 out of 30 for that audience. And really that's telling us that's who we should go for. Again, the challenge is a lot of people tend to be a bit, especially coaches, they want to help everyone. So it's very hard to cut out a specific type of audience. And if that's you, if you're listening to this and you think that you're really struggling to narrow it down, think of it more as this is completely the wrong phrase for this, but hopefully this will make sense. Short-term pain for long-term gain. You may have to niche down before you can then when you start to make a name for yourself and start to leverage your coaching abilities and with systems and processes and the team and various things like that. It might be you only, your first year in coaching, maybe you only work with 10 or 20 people, so that you become a specialist and an expert in delivering that solution, make a bit of money. And then in years 1 and 2, you can then start to grow it, maybe create a group program, build leverage into your coaching practice and start to help more people. And I see a lot of coaches as well who are desperate to sort of give back. They're always, I want to give something back. And I'm like, well, if you're only making 10 cents, you're not going to be able to afford to be able to give anything back. And most of your clients, most of my clients, coaches, are busy fools. They're working all hours under the sun before they start working with me, So not only do they not have the money, but they also don't have the time to give back. So it's much better to say, okay, well, I'm going to pause giving back for a couple of years, build a really sustainable coaching or consulting practice. And then when I'm making 100 grand and I leverage my business, my working hours back to maybe 3 days a week, now I've got lots more money, resources, and, time to then be able to go, give back, into that giving process.
Yeah, I agree 100% on that. Two other distinctions with that as well that I try to share with folks is, number one, it's if you do, pick that niche, and you're talking about too, just like jump in short term, try it, like it's nothing's permanent, if you jump in, you're like, I thought I liked working with these people. Holy smoke, for some reason it's great. Like, all right, well now you change, now you shift. There's never wasted time if you've jumped in and worked towards that. And the second thing is, when we're talking about niching down and really speaking to a specific audience, a lot of times it comes down to working with that group of folks for a while, but a lot of times that's where your marketing is focused, right? Like you'll have just in that ancillary world of, getting your name out there and building your business, you'll have the random, person outside of that group reach out and like, I know you work with these folks, but here's what I'm struggling with. And then case by case basis, you can, yes, sure, no problem. I know I can help you, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Going back to the sort of the list that drew us together, the pain points, problems, and challenges. I don't know if you've noticed, but probably I've already listed off about 30 different pain points that my clients experience. Yeah. The idea behind that list is so that you should be able to, if you can identify all of those pain points, problems, and challenges, that ultimately becomes your marketing message, your value proposition, because it's basically just a story that you tell, and the reason I came up with that list of 100, and I would encourage anybody listening it's quite a challenge actually. You think, oh, it's just writing down 100 things. Well, I can pretty much guarantee you'll get 20 or 30 written down, and then you'll start to struggle with numbers 69 to 100 or whatever, the last 69 of them. But what it means is that once you've got that list down there, like persevere, get the 100 down, you can start to tell a story about your clients. And so where it came from, just to give you the backstory, was I do a lot of speaking, various sort of big events, big and small. And one day we stood up at a networking meeting and everybody was doing their usual, hi, I'm Robin, I'm a web designer, and I work with SMEs to do it. And it's like, the very staid, boring, 60-second pitch, and nobody really wants to stand up and do it, and nobody's actually listening because they're thinking about what they're going to say when they're going to do that, right? So one day I thought, right, I'm going to flip the switch. I'm fed up of because I used to struggle with this as well. When I was starting out, having to do, I used to be a humble web designer in my marketing agency, so I was very introverted. I had to stand up and do these things, and I was just like, I've got to change this because this is not productive at all. So one day I stood up and I went. I just took a big deep breath. You're a really, really smart person. You're super busy. You get amazing results for your clients. But one of the things which I've noticed about you is that you're busy rushing around like a busy fool all of the time. And then at the end of the month, you scratch your head and you wonder where all the money has gone. Perhaps you work in the coaching or consulting space. Maybe you're a freelancer charging time for money. Well, all of that can be a thing in the past. So all I did was I just started telling this story about who my ideal client was, and all of the things which they told me that they were struggling with the most during my consultations I was giving during the early days. And I tell you what, there was probably only 40 people in the room, but I had 15 of them come up to me afterwards and hand me their business cards and say, we need a conversation. And so when you can identify those pain points and problems, it means that you have empathy with your clients. You can understand, and it's because I've been there. So what it was I was also telling my story at that time as well. My agency days just wearing me down. And when people feel heard, understood, that there's somebody out there who gets them, has experienced what they've experienced and what they're struggling with, and that they can see that there's an upside, there's a future world where that doesn't exist, or at least they know how to better deal with it, then you're going to have much more positive conversations with people.
Oh, you talk about standing out, right? And in those groups, you're going to be the only one talking in those terms, and the majority of people going like, why is he talking about me like right now? He knows, how does he know I'm going through this, right? And that's exactly what you want. I've heard it turned as far as like the other term was like racking the shotgun, right? Like the people who know are gonna know, they're gonna hear it and respond to that kind of language and that story. And yeah, I'm going through that right now. I love that. Yeah, it's so powerful. And I would imagine too that part of finding that list, coming up with that, part of it's digging deep and going through the conversations you've already had, and then some things like I referenced earlier on in the conversation. If you don't have that list and you are really struggling to come up with it, you need more conversations.
Yeah,
if it's a guess to who your ideal clients are, well, take a guess, go talk to them, and dig in and find out.
Yeah, the simplest way to come up with 100 sort of pain points problem. I mean, granted, there will be some overlaps. Similar people will come up with similar things, but go and ask 10 people who are in your ideal client sort of niche, what their 10 biggest challenges are, and hopefully you'll end up with 10 different ones. You may end up with some similar ones. One thing which is quite interesting about the list, though, and probably as you were reading it, you'll see that there are lots of similar, well, not similar ones, but they all fall into like just a very slim select group of categories. And it's the kind of principles that most people want improvement in their life around, health, wealth, happiness, relationships. It's those 4 sort of pillars which a lot of your pain points, problems and challenges will sort of hinge around. So you can also categorize them as well. And the nice thing about that is depending on what the nature of your coaching practices, what you specialize in, you can then start to identify the ones which then push the needle the most for your clients. So for me, for example, as I was going through my pain points and challenges with my clients, I was starting to realize that not all of them, but a majority of them came back to money. And mostly it was about scarcity versus abundance, not just in practical terms of having or not having the money, but also the mindset, their relationship with their parents when they were a child, and the conversations or arguments mostly that they used to listen to, from their parents over money and things like that. And so that for me started to become my North Star in terms of like coaching for fearless business. So it steered the product in a certain way as well in terms of what I delivered. And I realized that pretty much every coaching conversation I was having with the clients I worked with, for whatever reason, came back to how can we make more money? And it's not just a matter of like, trebling your prices and doing nothing different. There's a whole process which kind of sits behind that. But ultimately, that's what a lot of my this is for me personally what my coaching kind of revolved around as a business coach. So that list, though, it came initially from that list of 100 problems.
That's great, and yeah, that guides you. That's a great point too. Of it's not as binary as just like, oh, now I do this one thing and this. You help coaches and consultants with a number of things, but I imagine that's what you lead with, both in conversation and marketing, but even once they're a client, like, hey, this is what we solve first, and then we can get really awesome at this other stuff. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, what I've found, and we both work with a lot of sort of a lot of coaches and consultants, and one of the biggest challenges I found, especially with new coaches, is they kind of come out of coaching school, with their certificate, hey, I'm a coach now. But it's very formulaic, and I find that they really struggle to play outside of the rules, the boundaries that certificate has created for them. And so a lot of the work which I do is like, it's one of the beauties of A, being human, and B, having this amazing thing which we've got up here. We can be as creative as we like. And there's, I remember when every business coach that I spoke to used to do like business strategy on a page, which was like this specific model which all business coaches use. And I was like, and I'd challenge it and I'd be like, there's a whole world outside this business strategy on a page approach. Like, why aren't we like asking questions about that? And I think what it comes down to is when you start to look at the models which you get from coaching school, and then the problems, pain points, and challenges, often there's like, because I'm rambling a little bit here, but because every coach is different, every client is different, you have to create a process which works for you as a client as a coach when you are coaching your clients. And that is often very different to anything they teach you at business school or coaching school or consulting school. And again, encouraging people just to create their own rules, like their own process.
And that's a great point. Is like, you make your own bridge, right? Because there's a gap. Like, even if you have this amazing certified solution, you're trying to cram people into that thing. That's going to be painful for everybody involved, right? So there's going to be a gap with each person you talk to. That's your time to shine, is that bridge that you build between that. We need that. We need that foundation, right? We need that, like, the principles and strategies you would get from a coaching program.
Do you know why, though?
Why?
So all it comes down to is what I said at the start about identity. Because you, as an individual coach, attract a certain type of client. And it's going to be different to what every other type of coach or consultant out there is, like, who they're attracting. So that means that then that framework, you just adapt it ever so slightly just to meet the needs of your tribe, your people. And then that's where the magic happens.
And I hope that's fun for you. Like, if you're a coach or consultant, I hope that's the fun stuff, right? And maybe it's not. Maybe other people fit into this who are just like, I need this. I need structure in my life. And when I help other people, I need structure. That's not me. Like, the fun stuff is the human stuff. Everything else kind of needs to get taken care of. This one-on-one, that's the exciting stuff. We're like, all right, what do we got for you today? This is a great transition point, actually, on that point, because I think there's a perfect balance, right, in having a solution. This is a proven, tested solution product, if you will, and this is what you take your clients through, versus, how do you help people? I don't know, man. We just figure it out. We talk. We come up with something. It's cool by the end. Nobody wants that. But at the same time, we all, as humans, want that unique approach, right? That unique thing. And so when you can make that unique aspect, that, okay, here's where we dig in and find out, a part of the process, the product, I think that's the gold. Maybe it's not always the easiest thing, but that's what I wanted to jump in with you now on, is because that's again, the fun stuff for you is, how do you take that person who knows how to help people? They've kind of been trading their time for money to do that, but this really needs to become a business. This needs to become a thing, a real product, that solution that they're bringing to people. I know that's your superpower, right? Like, that's where you jump in. I love to hear you talk about that. I got some insight from reading your book, Take Your Shot, which is just fantastic. I encourage everyone to grab that, and they'll get a really good idea of this. But walk me through some of that, of where you jump in with that, and why you think it's valuable.
Yeah, I mean, one of the bits. So again, we can dive into my list. It's a good place to start. So one of the most common mistakes I see sort of coaches and consultants making is charging by the hour. And we see it the world over, people charging hourly rate work, but that principle of charging by the hour is just fundamentally flawed. It's just not a good, solid way to charge. So I'll give you an example. My brother works in construction, and they priced up a job. They got a fixed fee for doing the building work on this project, and they hired in this guy to come in and do a bit of extra work in terms of, I can't remember if he said it was either like the drywalling or something like that. And the guy had quoted like a day's work, and he'd had it finished in 5 hours. And so this guy went to the owners of the property and said, "Oh, I've done it in 5 hours. Don't worry, I won't charge you for the 3 hours I haven't done." Right. So of course the owners of the house go straight to my brother and his business partner and say, "Oh, we've noticed, that you had to leave early, or you couldn't work because of the rain on this particular day. Are you going to knock that off your bill?" And my brother's boss just turned around and just said, "Well, that's fine, but when we have to stay longer and you want us to do extra work, are you happy with us charging for the extra work?" And they immediately turned around and said, "Oh no, it's a fixed fee. We couldn't possibly do that." Well, there you go. If you can't have it both ways. And so that's the first example. The second example is Imagine, I don't know, you're in the market for a website and you've got two web designers and they're both charging £50 an hour, but you've got one who is inexperienced, hasn't been doing it for very long, and it takes them 20 hours. You've then got one who's like super experienced, like Website Ninja, knocks it out in, half the time. Why should the one who is better, who does it faster, get paid half the amount of money than the one who is less experienced, right? So you can start to see that hourly rate charging is flawed. It's okay as a baseline for starting to think about how you should charge, like starting to set up your packages, but certainly not in its own right. Hourly rates just don't work. And I noticed a lot of the coaches that I work with, for example, and consultants, they base their earnings potential on 160-hour working month, so 40 hours a week, right? That they're going to deliver all of these coaching sessions and consulting hours. And then lo and behold, they get into business and they start to realize, oh, I've got to spend a bit of time on marketing and sales, and I've got to go to these networking meetings, I've got to do my finance and admin, I've got to drop my kids off, and oh, heaven forbid they're ill for a week with chickenpox or something, and now I can't work at all. And so ultimately they only end up working 30 or 40 hours, and they're going, hang on, I feel like I've worked a full month and I've only got paid like a fifth of what I thought I was going to get paid, right? So there's a story, the pain points, the value proposition. So, but actually what they're doing is really great things for their clients. They're creating a return on investment for their clients. They're creating a transformation. So why shouldn't they get paid for the transformation, whether it takes a minute or a month? It doesn't matter, right? What we do is...
Sorry to interrupt, but especially the... I'll say, the higher end clients, more and more too, they want to pay for that speed. They don't want to feel like, oh, well, he gave me 30 weeks of something to get my result. They want that result. And if you can get it for them in a week, rock and roll, charge even more, Well,
the biggest challenge is that a lot of consumers, people buying stuff, aren't, you've got the time, quality, cost triangle. So some people want it done really well. Some people want it done really fast, so you've got to get the balance right. And one of the things I noticed is, again, a lot of our clients were giving away their fees, their prices through things like Messenger, or they put them on their website. And all they were hearing was from uneducated buyers who didn't know what amazing work they did or how fast they did it or what their processes were, was no. They kept on hearing the word no. It's too expensive, no. And so I challenge my clients. I always say to them, don't give your prices away too soon in the process, because you want to get to know your clients and educate them. You want them to know you. Certainly don't put your price on your website, because we're going to be testing different price points. What do you mean testing them? Because like the old school way of dealing with prices, right, was that you had your prices. I don't know who came up with this rule. It was stupid. I was about to say, can I say the F-bomb? Fucking stupid, right? It was a stupid rule that somebody out there came up with, that we had to put our prices up and we had to stick with our prices for 12 months. We couldn't change them up or down. And then at the end of the year, we'd review them on January the 1st. And we might, if we were feeling really brave, we might just put them up by 5 or 10%. Who came up with this stuff, right? And but the reality is, like, when you're testing prices, you could, because at the end of the day, it's like an agreement between you and the person who's buying it. And if today me and Jason decide, well, it's going to be £5,000, it's £5,000. If tomorrow I want to go and sell it to Dave for 10 and Dave says yes, the price is £10,000, right? These rules that we create are so arbitrary. And again, we struggle, because we're sensible people, we struggle to step outside of those boundaries. So a lot of the work which I do is aimed around just helping people to see that the rules of engagement, how they're running their business, could be wrong. There could be a different way, a better way, a shorter or faster way, or just another way of seeing it. And so I'll give you an example. So the first thing, people are like, if they're selling something for £50 an hour, right? That's easy. Okay, because to sell lots of £50 an hour, because it's only £50 an hour, right? But then if that thing takes 100 hours to produce, and all of a sudden I challenge them and say, well, actually, why are you selling 100 times 50? Why don't you just sell it for 5k? Same price. Oh, but 5k is a big number, Jason. I couldn't possibly sell it for 5k. That, like, the fear kicks in. And the reality is then when you challenge that person, say, just out of curiosity, would you spend 5k on that? Oh, no, I wouldn't possibly spend 5k on that. So the thing they're selling, they don't foundationally believe in the value of what they're selling a lot of the time. So first of all, my job is to get people comfortable saying that big number. It's just a number. right? And then it's how you also articulate it, how the semantics of the language you use around that big number. So instead of being, somebody says how much, and you retreat like Gollum and you say, well, it's £5,000. And then you have to justify the reason for living. Well, we're really good and we get it done really fast and we're the best in the area and we've got all these 5-star reviews. Well, actually, what it should sound like, if you know the value you deliver, what it should sound like is this. Well, listen, Jason, based on, the assessment form you filled in at the start and the conversation we've just had during this consultation, the package I'd recommend for you is this package. And the investment for it is just 5K. And that is it.
Yep. And that
So,
part is everything.
The SPFU.
Yes, exactly. And that is so scary for folks for whatever reason. And yeah, you talk about, so many times we just jump in with the, well, because you're going to get blah, 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 blah. You just want to fill that. Man, just
imagine the guy selling you a car, right? It's just you're buying a new Corvette and it's 60 grand, right? And then he starts talking about the it's got a 6-cylinder 9-piston engine with a supercharger, this doing this, and 420. And I'd be like, whoa, hang on a second, that 60 grand thing that you just said there, like you've just given them a new piece of information, and by justifying your position on this planet, afterwards, you're not giving the person time to process that information. It's not. People talk about the silent close. This isn't it's bullshit. The silent closes, right? That's silent closes, persuasive. It's an aggressive sales technique. There's all sorts of things wrong with it. This is just a moment of tranquil silence, giving the person an opportunity just to process that new bit of information that you've given to them. And all you're interested in is that the next thing that comes out of their mouth is the most important piece of information they're going to give you, which is their biggest objection. We probably need another episode for sales objections, Jason. But going back to my point though, but what we want to do is we want to get people comfortable saying that big number, because then if we've now, when we're productizing something, again, there's 3 rules for productizing a service. 1, what's the outcome or result we're going to deliver? Okay, so if I build this website for you and it's going to be 5K, our goal once it goes live is that we want it to be generating 10 to 15 solid leads a month for your business. Okay, so we get focused on a really specific outcome or result. The second lever when you're productizing a service, you've got results and outcomes. Second one is time. It needs to be delivered within a fixed period of time. Great, so we do this 30-day remarkable website package. Right, where in 30 days we'll build your site, and after that it's producing leads for your business. Okay, and then we do the fixed fee, so it's 5K for that package. Now the thing is, if you get really good at it and you have a system and process to deliver these remarkable websites in 30 days, or lo and behold, because you're now doing so many of them because you're good at it, you start delivering them in 14 days and you build a system, and next thing you know, you can drop them down in 7 days. And you mentioned, actually, if I can get it quick, I'm happy to pay a bit more, and you can find an audience that would be happy to pay more. Well, now all of a sudden you go, do you know what? We're so in demand at 5K. How about we just test the next 10 people at 8K? Let's just pitch 8K and see what happens. And there's a sweet spot of yeses and nos. Okay, so imagine we've got the needle on the rev counter. We don't want it bouncing off the red being 80, 90% conversion rate, because we can't go any further than that, and the machine's going to break if we're closing everybody, right? So we want to be probably just nicely around 3, just cruising down the freeway, 3,500 revs, say 35%, 40% of our maximum capacity, right? That's a good solid conversion rate, 40%. And what I've discovered is, so we've worked with about, nearly 1,100 businesses over the last sort of 6 years in various different formats: group coaching, one-to-one coaching, one-off sessions, workshops, and things like that. And what we've discovered is, through all of the data we've collected, if you're over 40%, you're probably too cheap as a conversion rate, so you can increase your prices. And naturally what that does, it forces the conversion rate back down eventually, just because of supply and demand. If you're closing less than that, and that's rare, I've rarely found, out of 1,100 businesses, probably there's been about a dozen, less than 1%, who have been below 40%. Because generally, if you're below 40%, it means you possibly are too expensive. And you could be too expensive and comfortable with that. A 20% conversion rate is acceptable as well. If you've got a healthy, profitable business and you've got clients, and that's the, because then you're talking about freedom and fulfillment and things like that in the business, not just purely the finance. But the thing people don't like is like a 40% conversion rate means you're getting 60 no's to every 40 yeses. And like, so we're turning away more clients than we're taking on. Yep, absolutely. And that's okay. The goal isn't to collect customers, to collect clients. The goal is to have a healthy, profitable business.
Oh, yeah. And then if you can even get more nuanced in that as you dial this stuff in to where now what do you do with that 60%? Just because they're not clients, do we nurture them? Do we pass them on to someone else? Like there's possibility there as well as you get more nuanced. I love this idea to that approach, even that example you laid out, I think perfect package for you is this, here's how much it is. That's the power in the package, right? It's this thing, it's this process, and as opposed to it's me for X amount of hours, right? Like people, even your biggest fans don't care that much. They want they want the result. And so how much do you get into when you're creating that package? Because we've walked people through that, right? Like we found the pain points. We know where you help people with in the best possible way, solve that pain point. How important is it to have that quantifiable result for folks, depending on what they're offering?
Imperative. It's essential. If you want to, like, you wouldn't go and buy your $60,000 Corvette, right? And in the process of buying it, they go, well, it might go from 0 to 60 in 6 seconds. I don't know. Like you'd be like, well, hang on a second. Surely you know this stuff. Well, I don't know. You put your foot down the accelerator. I can't always guarantee that it's going to work. Like you'd be like, I'm going to go somewhere where they can guarantee that this Corvette's going to do what it's supposed to do, right? So in fact, in Fearless, when we're on client calls, we have a swear word. It's the only word which people are not allowed to say, right? Which actually I fine them for it. And the words are, it depends, right? If you find yourself saying it depends, essentially what you've said there is there are uncertainties in your business, and it is your job as an expert to remove as many uncertainties from your business as you possibly can do in order to deliver predictable outcomes and results, in order to deliver those predictable outcomes and results for your clients. And so my challenge is always to people, I mean, like 100% money back guarantees, I'm not going to lie, they're a bit gimmicky and a bit don't really want to do that sort of thing if you can't genuinely back it up. But one way to think about it is to offer something called a perceived value guarantee. And how that works is that, let's say we're going to work together for 12 months, and with all best intentions, I show up, you show up, we do the work, but we don't get the result. Or maybe actually you just genuinely feel you didn't get value for money. We'll refund you. There are very few coaches or consultants out there prepared to do a refund. Why? Because their business has too many variables. It depends, like inherently built into it, mostly out of their own insecurities, because they'll just be taking money just for the sake of taking money, taking on clients that probably they shouldn't be taking on. They haven't productized things enough that they are known as an expert so they can, charge their worth within their business. And also, most of them are just flying by the seat of their pants. So they're literally, every penny that they earn in their business, they're paying straight out on their bills. So they have no buffer. And so there's so much fear involved in that, when you just don't have any kind of bandwidth, operational sort of bandwidth. So by charging more, you can slow the process down a little bit, stop collecting clients. You can do a better job for your clients. So the way I like to look at it, I call it this. I'll stop rambling this. I recognize I'm talking a lot, Jason. You're supposed to stop me. No, I call it the sales cycle of doom. This is how most business owners operate: sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver. Then they get ill, or they have to take a holiday, and then they stop selling, stop delivering. And then 2 weeks later, they come back to work, and they're like, right, and they sell, deliver, sell, deliver, sell, deliver. Right, that's how most businesses seem to operate. But if you charge more money, imagine it's like a gravity field. You get more time. to deliver a better quality service or product to your clients, which produces more money on the back end because they buy more stuff from you, which then you get even better results, which means that then they refer you and they give great video testimonials, case studies and reviews and things like that, which then gets better quality clients, more committed clients who spend more money, and so you get more. So actually, the ideal business for many people, is to have half the clients and double the income. And the only way to do that is to learn how to articulate your value, put your prices up, focus on the results and outcomes which you deliver. Don't be a jack of all trades, like be an expert, like do one thing really well for one person. And then your world starts to come together. You start to build a buffer up. You get the security. You don't feel needy. How many coaches or consultants have you seen, Jason, where you just like, they're so needy, like just to get clients?
And you can think about it being woo-woo all you want to, but that is a tangible flippant energy that we all feel, or we all project one way or the other, is either that confidence that like, cool, let's have a conversation. It's not for you? Awesome, no problem. Or, okay, well then how about for this much? How about
you're not going to sign up? Like, but I need the money. I've got to pay my mortgage. I've got to put food on my table. How dare you say no to me? I'm the best. You're just
right.
Like, take a chill, man.
Right. And I've been in those situations where inside, yes, that's exactly how I feel. And, I get off the call and like, oh my gosh, I thought I was going to eat this week. Sure, we've all been there, but it is night and day when you can get into that space, even if you're tricking yourself first. Like, it's imperative that you don't show up with that crazy energy like that frantic stuff. When it comes to that guarantee, too, the reason most people don't offer that is because they aren't heavily invested in not just delivering this info, like, oh, I gave it to them, they didn't use it, like, but they're heavily invested in, okay, I'm going to make sure, number one, I have the right client I've brought on who's going to respond to this information. But where are you this week? Where are we? Why haven't you done this? Where, staying on. And I think that is something unique to the coaching industry a lot of times. But, our value is tied into them actually getting the result, not just consuming the information or not.
My best clients are ones who have never spent a penny with me. So I would rather be poor, homeless, and destitute than take on a client who is not a good fit for my program, like right now. I'll like Rich Litvin. We were talking about Rich Litvin off air. One of the best coaches out there, and his approach is you create clients. So if you can help them, invite them, for coaching, add value, like actually do coaching with them, don't just sell them. And if it's a good fit and it's the right time, and you can get a great result working with them and vice versa, then you enter into that, that contract as a coach. And I've had people who I've purposefully sent away knowing it's not a good fit. And we keep in touch. There's a few things that I can help them out with behind the scenes, maybe send them a copy of my book or point them in the direction of my podcast or somebody else's podcast like yours. And then 2 or 3 years later, right time, right conditions, everything kind of aligns, and it's like, actually, now is the right time for us to work together. And it's a much more abundant way of doing business, because I would say a third of my clients are people I've turned down or they've turned me down at some point in the past. And it's just a much better way of doing business.
Oh, yeah. Everyone feels better in that scenario. Everyone. Both sides. It's awesome. All right. How can people reach out, and who needs to reach out and connect with you?
Yeah, like I said, we work primarily with coaches, consultants, and freelancers. And you mentioned my book earlier on as well, but take your shot. I've got some signed copies as well for your listeners if they're interested. So they can go to fearless.biz/TYS for Take Your Shot and apply for a copy. But obviously, it's also, if you want to pay for my daughter's future education and put some money in my beer kitty, you can also go to Amazon and buy a copy of it as well if you want to. But I do have some signed copies for those who particularly want a signed one. And then obviously my website, Robin Waite, that's Waite with an E on the end of it, where I've got some free resources, some mini courses on there, and more information about sort of what we've been talking about today, pricing wise for coaches and consultants.
Perfect. Oh, that's fantastic. I appreciate that offer to the audience there. I encourage you all to do that. Like I said, I've listened to the book. I'm an audiobook guy, and it was great. So go in and grab that. Definitely connect, Robin. Thank you so much for being on.
Oh, it's been my absolute pleasure, Jace. I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I hope we'll have another one as well.
Yes, indeed. All right, and we'll see you all next time. Thanks so much for tuning in and being a part of this show. If you want help creating authority building video content or even a client generating show of your own, go to MediaLeadsCo.com and let's connect. I'll talk to you soon on the next Strategy in Action.